If you've had that experience of being really motivated and going for it and putting all this time into it and then losing that motivation and quitting and then getting back into it, you have to stop and ask yourself, what is it that keeps bringing me back to it, right? Why do I, despite how many times I give up on it and quit on it, why do I always come back to it? It's because there is this inner drive within you, this inner desire to learn this skill. Truly, your true nature would be to learn it. So ultimately, that is what you want. Maybe in the short term, you have this resistance, whatever it is that's holding you back. In all reality, you want to get good at this thing. So if you found that, you've quit cybersecurity a few times and you find yourself back here, you're watching this video, you want to get back into it, that just proves that this is something that is important to you. And since we've established that this is important to you, then you need to remember that, when you're lacking that motivation so that you could keep on moving forward and keep putting time into this. And when you do that, it's going to be easier to do that, for one thing, because you're going to know that because it's important to you, the motivation will come back. Dealing with burnout in cybersecurity. This is a topic that a lot of people have talked about in the past, but I feel like a lot of them are just kind of saying the same thing. Let me just preface this video by saying that I have a quite unpopular opinion on dealing with this, and the advice that I'm going to give you in this video is not what most people would tell you. So before we even dive into it, let's just get one thing out of the way up front. You will lose motivation. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. I don't care how much you love pen testing and red teaming and all that stuff. Eventually, there will come a point where you lose that motivation. Now, why is this? Well, the reason is that motivation is fleeting. It comes and it goes, right? So if you really want to be successful, you want to develop resilience and grit, for one thing, which is a video that I made earlier. Go ahead and check that one out. I'll link it at the end of the video. But depending on where you are right now, you may have motivation working in your favor, right? Maybe you discovered the channel, you got into learning cybersecurity, you're really eager to learn, you're really excited, right? And in that case, then it's working in your benefit and you're going to be able to put in a lot of time into cybersecurity and it's not going to feel that difficult. You're going to feel like, oh, I could do this forever, right? How many times have you, as a kid, how many times have you gotten a new toy, maybe a new video game, maybe Christmas came around, you got the new present that you've been really wanting, you've been wanting it so much, right? And you first got your hands on it and you spent hours and hours, playing with this toy or playing this game, right? And then, a few months later, you maybe just played it every once in a while, or maybe you didn't play it at all, right? Maybe you got your first job or a new job you landed and you're really excited, really eager to just put time into that job and be the best you could be at that job. You were really excited about anything you could learn regarding the job. And then, several months later, few months later, that excitement, that eagerness, it dwindled, right? This is exactly illustrating the point that I'm talking about, that motivation. It's an ebb and flow. Now, for some things, you get really excited, like a present, you get excited in the beginning and then it just drops off and you probably never rekindle that excitement again. Now, maybe you have a hobby that you've been in and out with, like say maybe you play guitar and there's sometimes we're really motivated to play guitar or drums or whatever. And then you lose that motivation, you stop playing guitar, and then you come back and pick up the guitar again, you get back into it, and then you drop it. So this can ebb and flow. It can have a pattern. And really, we must acknowledge that, the motivation will be there. And when it's there, take advantage of it. But ultimately, we have to divorce ourselves from relying on this motivation, because that is the mistake that most people make, is that they rely on this motivation to tell them when they're going to work and when they're not going to work, right? When they're going to study, when they're not going to study. So you really have to detach yourself from that emotion of feeling motivated, not feeling motivated. Now, you can't control it to a degree. You will feel motivation. When you do, that's a good thing. Do more of it, right? But sometimes you won't feel like it, and you can't change your emotion, your feeling towards it, but you can change your actions, because that is something that you absolutely can control. So really what it comes down to is you must push through, right? You'll feel like it again. We talked about the ebb and flow just a second ago, right? If you push through and you do it anyways, even when you don't feel like it, eventually that motivation that you once had will come back to you. And when it does, that'll be amazing, right? Now, let me just get clear on what I'm saying here. and what I'm not saying, more importantly. What I'm not saying is that, oh, you should always just study like 5 hours a day, bro. Even if you don't feel like it, just put in the 5 hours, bro, or you're a loser, right? Because that's what some people do. They have this very negative mindset. And that's why people talk about really hitting that burnout level where they feel like they're burned out. It's because they're trying to do too much. Now, what you want to do is make sure you're being consistent. I talk about consistency a lot in this channel because it's very, very important. And even if you drop off for a few days and you don't do it, don't beat yourself up because that makes it even more difficult to get back into it, right? That's a whole nother topic. But, you know, let's say you're in this situation where your motivation's down. Maybe you're watching the video right now and you feel like your motivation to do this stuff is very low level right now. So what you want to do in that scenario is you still want to make sure you're putting in time to cybersecurity every day, especially if it's your main focus. If cybersecurity is not a very high priority for you, maybe you do it every other day. But I think for most people watching this video and to subscribe to this channel, cybersecurity probably ranks up there as a very high priority for you. So you want to make sure that you're doing it every single day. A good book to read on this is Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about just the importance of being consistent and constantly putting in the work to learning what you're trying to learn, no matter how small that amount of work is. So even if you're super demotivated right now, even if all you could do is put in like half an hour a day, or maybe even 15 minutes a day, I would say for cybersecurity, something like that, it takes a while to get really into it by the time you fire up all your tools, get things ready. If you could at least put in 30 minutes a day, if you're really demotivated, maybe an hour a day, whatever you can muster, even if it's less than you would normally be doing, the fact that you're still getting exposure to the skill, you're still harnessing that skill and improving it, it's going to make sure that at the worst case, you're not regressing, you're not going backwards, because especially when you're really new to this stuff, if you take long breaks, you're going to find that you lose a lot of that skill that you worked so hard to develop, because let's be honest, you probably put in a lot of effort already to get to where you are. And if you haven't yet, even more reason to put in the time, because you don't want to go back to square one. You don't want to go back to zero. And so you don't have to spend 3 hours a day when you're super demotivated, but you still need to be putting in that time. And know and understand that if this is something that is very important to you, that motivation will come back, right? Let's go back to the guitar analogy. If you are someone that's really into, playing instruments, or maybe learning languages, whatever the case may be, right? If you've had that experience of being really motivated and going for it and putting all this time into it and then losing that motivation and quitting and then getting back into it, you have to stop and ask yourself, what is it that keeps bringing me back to it, right? Why do I, despite how many times I give up on it and quit on it, why do I always come back to it? It's because there is this inner drive within you, this inner desire to learn this skill. Truly, your true nature would be to learn it. So ultimately, that is what you want. Maybe in the short term, you have this resistance, whatever it is that's holding you back. In all reality, you want to get good at this thing. So if you found that, you've quit cybersecurity a few times and you find yourself back here, you're watching this video, you want to get back into it, that just proves that this is something that is important to you. And since we've established that this is important to you, then you need to remember that, when you're lacking that motivation, so that you could keep on moving forward and keep putting time into this. And when you do that, it's going to be easier to do that, for one thing, because you're going to know that because it's important to you, the motivation will come back. That motivation will come back. It's only a matter of time. Just put in the 30 minutes or hour or whatever when you're lacking that motivation, and eventually it will come back. And when it does come back, take advantage of that, ride that wave, put in a lot of time into cybersecurity. But combining the volume with the consistency is what's really, in the long run, going to allow you to succeed. And the amazing thing about this is you could apply this, we made so many analogies now in this video. You could apply this to any skill, anything that's important to you, apply this. And as you're implementing the strategy and you become able to deal with this burnout where 95% of your peers are not able to, you're way more quickly than them going to reach the point where you're in those job interviews, you're ready to start applying at least. And once you do reach that point, you're going to want to arm yourself with the top 10 pen testing interview questions that you need to know so you can succeed there and succeed yet again. And then that will only fuel that motivation. Then you'll be even more motivated, right? So go ahead and check that out down in the description below, absolutely for free. And if you want to get into some more technical content, I have that on the screen for you right now as well. I'll see you guys over in those videos. Thanks for watching.